Welcome to Edexcel GCSE RS Revision Unit 10.4. In this final part we will look at the work of Catholics within UK society. In this final section on living the Christian life, we look at two particular areas where Catholics may find themselves working within British society at large. These areas are working to promote community cohesion and working to relieve poverty. In both sections, I will cover the why and the how of these areas. We begin with community cohesion. Let's start with the definition. Community cohesion is the idea of all people and groups within society coexisting peacefully. It is sometimes referred to as social or racial harmony. If you also study Unit 3, you will notice there is some overlap between this topic and Unit 3.4. So why should Catholics work to promote community cohesion in society? There are three main answers. Firstly, the parable of the Good Samaritan. Jesus used this parable to answer the question, "Who is my neighbour?" in the context of the commandment to love your neighbour. Through this parable, Jesus shows that your neighbour is anyone who is in need, regardless of their race or nationality. Jews and Samaritans were enemies, so by choosing a Samaritan to be the person who helps the injured Jew, Jesus teaches his listeners to feel compassion for anyone in need and to ignore racial or cultural barriers. Secondly, the vision of St. Peter. In the book of Acts, St. Peter has a dream or vision in which God tells him he can eat any animal. Having grown up as a devout Jew, Peter would have been used to avoiding certain animals as they were not kosher. Peter reflects on the vision and realises that God is teaching him about treating non-Jews the same as Jews. He says, "I now realise how true it is that God does not show favouritism, but accepts from every nation the one who fears him and does what is right." In other words, Christians should only be concerned with the content of a person's character and not the colour of their skin. Thirdly, the common humanity as sons and daughters of Adam. The Catechism teaches that since all human beings are made in the image of God and share a common ancestry, that they must all be treated with equal dignity. The Catechism says, "The equality of men rests essentially on their dignity as persons and the rights that flow from it." This should therefore mean that Catholics must reject all forms of discrimination, which conversely means that they are called to promote racial harmony or community cohesion. The Catechism states, "Every form of social or cultural discrimination in fundamental personal rights on the grounds of sex, race, colour, social conditions, language or religion must be curbed and eradicated as incompatible with God's design." Now we look at the how do Catholics work to promote community cohesion. Catholics can work to promote community cohesion on three different levels. Firstly, as an individual. Through their own actions and the way they interact with other people, Catholics can promote community cohesion at an individual level. This may mean being welcoming, open and tolerant of people from other races, languages and cultures. This may also mean challenging racist or discriminatory behaviour that they encounter in their daily life. For example, if a Catholic notices someone being abused because of the colour of their skin, they could intervene and defend the dignity of the victim. Secondly, they can promote community cohesion as part of a local group. Many towns and communities run local projects that attempt to build social and community cohesion. Here are a couple of examples. Many towns have interfaith groups that aim to get members of different religions together to learn from one another and promote tolerance. Another example of promoting cohesion is the street pastor movement, which sends Christian volunteers to walk through town centres on Friday and Saturday nights looking out for vulnerable people, as well as being a positive presence in the community. Thirdly, Catholics can promote community cohesion as part of a national movement or group. The Catholic Church actively promotes racial harmony and community cohesion through its schools. The Catholic Education Service ensures schools teach students about religions and promote community cohesion. The fact that this topic is part of the GCSE course is proof of this idea. Also, the Church is actively involved in ecumenism, which aims to get different Christian denominations to work closely together. The Catholic Church is part of an organisation called Churches Together in Britain and Ireland, which is an example of ecumenism at work. We move on now to the relief of poverty in the UK. So why should Catholic Christians work to relieve poverty? I will outline three main answers, which are all related to the teachings of Jesus. You may notice some crossover here with Unit 3.2. Firstly, in the Sermon on the Mount, in Matthew chapter 7 verse 12, Jesus teaches the Golden Rule. This basic principle says that Christians should treat others the way they want to be treated. When in a position of need, most people would want to be treated with compassion and generosity. So it is the responsibility of Christians to treat those in need with compassion and generosity. Secondly, in Mark 12, when asked about the most important commandment, Jesus says the second most important, after love of God, is to love your neighbour, which, as we have already seen from the parable of the Good Samaritan, means to help anyone who is in need of care and support. Thirdly, in Matthew 25, Jesus teaches the parable of the sheep and goats. This parable teaches the followers of Jesus to show love for people by feeding the hungry, clothing the naked, and caring for the sick. He says, "Whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers of mine, you did for me." How do Catholics help relieve poverty in the UK? At this point, the Edexcel exam board expects you to be able to write about the work of one specific Catholic organisation that works in the UK to relieve poverty. In this case, you should write about the St Vincent de Paul Society, also known as SVP for short. The St Vincent de Paul Society is a Catholic charity first set up in Paris in the 1800s. The charity was not set up by St Vincent de Paul, but rather the founder, Frederick Ozanam, chose St Vincent as the patron of the charity. The charity is organised at a local level, with many parishes, schools and universities having their own SVP group who help respond to the needs of their local community. Obviously, these will differ from place to place. For example, a parish in central London may have a particular need to help the homeless, while a parish in rural Scotland may have a particular need for people to visit and help the housebound. Here are some more examples of the type of work done by SVP groups in the UK. Assisting housing associations to help the homeless by providing hostel accommodation and furniture for those who have recently been rehoused, or providing food for the homeless. Supporting young people with disabilities and young carers by running holiday camps. These help provide a rest for adult carers as well as for young people. Supporting prisoners by running prison chaplaincies. This is based on the original experience of St Vincent de Paul, who spent time in prison himself and vowed to help prisoners after he was released. Caring for and visiting the vulnerable in society. This could include the lonely, the bereaved and the housebound. They also run drop-in centres where people can get some regular social contact with others. Just a quick note on some specific exam stuff, showing where some of the material from this unit, 10.4, Living the Christian Life, overlaps if you are also studying Unit 3. Firstly, there is some overlap with Unit 3.4, Religion and Community Cohesion. The reasons we have looked at for why Catholics should work to promote community cohesion are relevant both in Unit 10.4 but also in Unit 3.4 too. There is also some overlap with Unit 3.2, Matters of Life and Death. The reasons why Christians should work to relieve poverty in the UK are exactly the same as the reasons given in Unit 3.2 for relieving poverty abroad. However, the example of an organisation you should study are different. In Unit 3.2 you are asked to look at the work of CAFOD, which works overseas to relieve poverty. In this unit, 10.4, you are asked to look at SVP, who work here in the UK to relieve poverty. Thanks for watching, that's the end of Unit 10.4. Please remember to subscribe to my channel, give this video a thumbs up, follow me on Twitter and download the podcast.